Lily Porter's world shattered when the rifle butt slammed against the wooden table, sending her teacup shattering across the rough-hewn floor of their small homestead. The year was 1878, and at 20 years old, she had already endured more hardship than most women twice her age in the unforgiving territory of Wyoming. "You're a burden, Lily," her brother Emmett shouted, his face reddened by whiskey and desperation. "Pa's dead, Ma's dead, and I'm left with a failing farm and a sister who eats more than she's worth." Lily backed away, her honey-brown hair falling from its pins as she stumbled against the wall. "Emmett, please, I've been working just as hard as you. The drought isn't my doing." The drought had indeed been merciless. 3 months without rain had turned their modest plot outside Opal, Wyoming, into a wasteland of cracked earth and withered crops. Their parents had died of fever the previous winter, leaving 27-year-old Emmett as Lily's only family and protector. But protection had twisted into possession, and now, with desperation clouding his judgment, he looked at his sister as nothing more than another piece of property to barter. "Mr. Blackwell's passing through," Emmett said, his voice dropping to a calculating tone. "He's got business in the Montana Territory, needs a woman to cook and keep house, says he's got a fine stallion he's willing to trade." Lily's blood ran cold. "You wouldn't dare." "I need that horse to rebuild, Lily. One good breeding stallion could save this farm." His eyes, once so similar to their mother's kind gaze, now held nothing but cold calculation. "Pack your things. He'll be here at dawn." Miles away, in the heart of Opal, Nathan Owens leaned against the bar of the Silver Spoke Saloon, nursing a whiskey as he listened to the latest town gossip. At 32, Nathan had already lived several lifetimes. He'd driven cattle from Texas to Kansas, panned for gold in California, and eventually settled as a horse trader with a modest ranch just outside Opal. His reputation for fair deals and quality stock had earned him respect in a territory where a man's word was often his only currency. "Heard Emmett Porter's looking to trade his sister for a horse," muttered Silas Green, the elderly barkeep whose ears caught every whisper in Opal. Nathan nearly choked on his drink. "Come again, you heard me." Silas wiped a glass with a dubious rag. "Poor girl. Their place got hit worst by the drought. Emmett's desperate, and that sister of his is about to pay the price. Word is Blackwell's heading there tomorrow with that mean-tempered stallion of his." "Blackwell?" Nathan's jaw tightened. He knew the man by reputation, a trader who moved between territories, dealing in whatever brought profit with little concern for how he came by his goods. And the Porter girl. "She's agreeing to this," Silas snorted. "What choice does she have? No kin but that good-for-nothing brother. Shame, too. Miss Porter's got a kind heart. Nursed half the town through that fever last winter, including my Mary." Nathan stood abruptly, leaving coins on the counter. "Which way is the Porter place?" 5 miles east, just past Broken Ridge. "But what's your business there, Owens?" Nathan didn't answer. He was already heading for the door, his mind racing. He'd seen too much injustice in his years on the frontier, women treated as property, lives bartered away. He'd made a promise at his mother's deathbed that he'd never stand by while the innocent suffered. And while he'd never met Lily Porter, the thought of her being traded like cattle twisted something deep in his gut. Dawn had barely broken when Nathan arrived at the Porter homestead. He'd ridden through the night, pushing his mare harder than he liked, but time was precious. The small cabin sat on a dusty plot of land that had clearly seen better days. A thin wisp of smoke curled from the chimney, and in the yard, a man Nathan presumed was Emmett Porter was already loading saddlebags onto a lean, hungry-looking horse. "Porter," Nathan called, dismounting. "Got a proposition for you." Emmett turned, his expression wary. Don't believe I know you, Mr. Nathan Owens. I run the Double Circle Ranch west of town. Nathan kept his voice level, measuring the man before him. Emmett Porter was younger than he'd expected, but his eyes held a hardness that spoke of bitter disappointment. "Whatever you're selling, I ain't buying," Emmett said, turning back to his task. "Heard you're looking to trade for a stallion." This caught Emmett's attention. "What of it? I've got better stock than whatever Blackwell's offering, but I want to make a different deal." Nathan stepped closer. "I want to buy your sister's contract." Emmett's eyes narrowed. "She ain't for sale. She's already promised." "Everything's for sale at the right price." Nathan held the man's gaze. "I'll give you my best breeding stallion worth 3 of Blackwell's plus 2 mares and enough seed to replant your South 40. The door to the cabin creaked open, and Lily Porter stepped out, a small bundle clutched in her arms. She froze at the sight of Nathan, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance that struck him to his core. She was beautiful in a quiet, unassuming way, not the flashy beauty of saloon girls, but something deeper, more resilient. Her simple dress was patched but clean, and her hair was neatly braided as if maintaining dignity was her final act of rebellion. "Who's this?" she asked, her voice steadier than her hands. Emmett ignored her. "Why would you offer all that? What's your interest in my sister?" Nathan chose his words carefully. "I need someone to help with the house. Got a business to run and no time for cooking and cleaning." It wasn't entirely a lie. He did need help around the ranch, but it wasn't his primary motivation. Something about the quiet dignity in Lily Porter's stance, the way she faced her fate with her chin lifted despite the fear in her eyes, had solidified his resolve. "And that's worth all you're offering," Emmett scoffed. "I wasn't born yesterday, Owens." "The drought's hit everyone," Nathan replied. "I need the help and you need a fresh start, simple business." Lily stepped forward. "Do I have no say in this?" Her voice was soft but carried a strength that surprised Nathan. "No," Emmett snapped. "Yes," Nathan said simultaneously. He turned to her. "Miss Porter, I'm offering fair employment at my ranch. Room, board, and wages. No more, no less." She studied him, and Nathan felt as if those clear eyes were seeing straight through to his soul. "And if I refuse, then I respect your decision and leave you to your arrangements." Nathan held her gaze, trying to convey that his offer was genuine, that he had no intention of forcing her into anything. A cloud of dust on the horizon announced another rider approaching. "Blackwell." "Time's up," Emmett said. "Blackwell's here and we have a deal." Nathan turned to Lily, speaking quickly and quietly. "Miss Porter, I swear on my mother's grave I mean you no harm, but Blackwell, his reputation isn't good. The choice is yours, but I'm offering a fair alternative." Lily looked from Nathan to the approaching rider, then to her brother's impatient face. In that moment, she made a calculation of her own survival. "I'll go with Mr. Owens," she said firmly. Emmett's face darkened. "You don't decide, actually," Nathan interrupted. "She does. And I'm prepared to sweeten the deal." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. "Deed to my claim on Silverwater Creek. It's got water rights that'll see you through 3 droughts, worth more than any horse." It was his ace in the hole, the claim he'd been saving for expansion. But seeing the determination in Lily's eyes, Nathan knew he'd give up far more to honor the promise he'd made at his mother's bedside. Emmett's eyes widened. "Water rights, full legal claim, signed and registered in Cheyenne." Nathan handed over the document, along with the horses and seed. Blackwell's horse was close enough now that they could hear the jingle of tack. Emmett looked at the deed in his hands, then at his sister. "Take your things and go," he said gruffly. "You're Mr. Owens' problem now." Lily flinched at his words but gathered her small bundle tighter. "Goodbye, Emmett." Nathan helped her onto his mare, then mounted behind her. They were riding away as Blackwell arrived, the traders' confused shouts fading behind them as they crested the ridge. "Thank you," Lily said quietly, her back stiff against Nathan's chest. "But I need to know what you truly expect from me, Mr. Owens." "Exactly what I said. Cooking, cleaning, help around the ranch." Nathan kept his eyes on the trail ahead. "You'll have your own quarters and I'll pay fair wages. If you want to leave after a month, I'll see you safely to wherever you want to go." "Why would you trade so much for a housekeeper?" Nathan was silent for a long moment. "Let's just say I've seen what happens to women with no choices in this territory. My mother made me promise never to stand by when I could help." "Your mother raised a good man, then," Lily said softly. "She tried her best." Nathan guided the horse around a bend in the trail, revealing the valley where Opal nestled against the distant mountains. "Welcome to your temporary home, Miss Porter, for as long as you choose." The Double Circle Ranch came into view as they descended the last slope into the valley floor. It was larger than Lily had expected, a main house built of solid timber, a large barn, corrals filled with horses of superior stock, and several outbuildings. Unlike her brother's failing farm, this was a working enterprise that spoke of careful planning and hard work. "This is all yours?" she asked, unable to hide the awe in her voice. "Built it from scratch over the last 8 years, Nathan replied, a hint of pride in his voice. "Started with 2 horses and a leaky tent." As they rode into the yard, a stocky man with a graying beard emerged from the barn. "Boss, wasn't expecting you back till..." He stopped short at the sight of Lily. "Jim, this is Miss Porter. She'll be helping around the house." Nathan dismounted and reached up to assist Lily. "Miss Porter, this is Jim Hawkins, my foreman and right hand." Lily nodded politely, though she could feel Jim's curious gaze. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Hawkins." "Likewise, madam," Jim replied, his eyes darting between her and Nathan with unconcealed questions. "Jim, have the boys bring over the 2 bay mares and Thunder to the Porter place. And the seed corn from the storehouse." Nathan's tone made it clear this wasn't up for discussion. Jim's eyebrows shot up. "Thunder, but boss, you've been breeding that stallion for..." "I know what I'm doing," Nathan cut him off. "And tell the boys not to linger. Just make the delivery and come back." Jim nodded, though his expression remained puzzled. "Yes, sir." Nathan guided Lily toward the main house, a modest but well-maintained 2-story structure with a wide porch and actual glass windows, a luxury in these parts. "I'll show you to your room," he said, opening the door for her. "You can get settled while I see to some business." The interior of the house was surprisingly neat for a bachelor's dwelling, with solid furniture and practical arrangements. Nathan led her upstairs to a small but clean bedroom with a real bed, a washstand, and a chest of drawers. "This will be your space," he said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "The kitchen's well stocked, but I usually take meals with the men in the bunkhouse. You're welcome to join or eat separately, whatever makes you comfortable." Lily set her bundle on the bed, fighting back unexpected tears. After months of uncertainty and the betrayal of her only family, this simple kindness was almost too much to bear. "Mr. Owens," she began, her voice barely steady, "I don't know how to thank you." "No need," he said gruffly. "Rest. We can talk about duties tomorrow." He hesitated, then added, "The door has a lock, Miss Porter. I want you to use it." With that, he turned and left her alone with her thoughts and the luxury of a real bed with clean linens. Lily sank onto it, finally letting the tears flow freely. Not tears of sadness, but of relief and lingering shock. In the span of a day, her entire world had been uprooted once more. She didn't know Nathan Owens, didn't know his true character or intentions. But as she looked around the small, clean room with its locking door, She allowed herself to hope that perhaps, just perhaps, fate had finally dealt her a kindness. The next morning, Lily woke before dawn, her body trained by years of farm work to rise with the first light. She dressed quickly in one of her 2 dresses, splashed water on her face from the pitcher on the washstand, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was larger than she expected, with a proper cookstove rather than an open hearth. The pantry was indeed well stocked, and Lily set about making a hearty breakfast, needing to keep her hands busy while her mind processed her new circumstances. She was sliding biscuits into the oven when Nathan entered, already dressed for the day's work in practical denims and a faded work shirt. "You're up early," he said, sounding surprised. "Farm habits," Lily replied, wiping her hands on her apron. "I hope you don't mind that I started breakfast." "Not at all." Nathan poured himself coffee from the pot she'd already brewed. "But you didn't need to jump into work right away. You could have taken time to settle." Lily turned to face him fully for the first time. In the clear morning light streaming through the windows, she could properly see the man who had traded so much for her contract. Nathan Owens was tall and broad-shouldered, with the lean, muscular build of someone who worked physically for a living. His face was weathered from years in the sun, but his eyes were a striking blue, observant and intelligent. Not classically handsome, perhaps, but with a strength and steadiness that put her at ease despite their unusual circumstances. "I prefer keeping busy, Mr. Owens. Idle hands invite idle thoughts, and I've had quite enough of those lately." She gestured toward the stove. "Breakfast will be ready shortly. Do you prefer to eat here, or shall I take it to the bunkhouse?" Nathan studied her for a moment, then set his cup down. "I usually grab something quick and head out, but I suppose we should talk about your duties and expectations. We can eat here." They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, plates laden with eggs, biscuits, and bacon. Nathan seemed almost uncomfortable with the domestic scene, as if unused to sharing meals in his own home. "This is good," he said after a few bites. "Very good. Thank you." Lily took a small bite of her own food, finding it difficult to eat with the uncertainty of her situation still weighing on her. "Mr. Owens, I need to understand exactly what my position is here." Nathan set down his fork. "Like I said, housekeeper, cooking, cleaning, mending, the usual." "And my contract." The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Nathan's jaw tightened. "There is no contract, Miss Porter. What I told your brother was necessary to get you away from there safely. You're a free woman. You can leave any time you choose." Lily blinked in surprise. "But you traded so much. That's my concern, not yours." His tone was firm but not unkind. "If you choose to stay, I'll pay you fair wages, $15 a month plus room and board. If you choose to leave, I'll see you safely to wherever you want to go." "Why?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Why would you do all this for a stranger?" Nathan was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on some middle distance. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. "My mother and sister were sold to settle my father's gambling debts when I was 14. I never saw them again." He met her eyes. "No woman deserves to be traded like property." The stark honesty in his confession stole Lily's breath. "I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago." Nathan pushed back from the table. "You have questions about the household, I expect." Lily recognized his desire to change the subject and respected it. "Yes. What exactly needs attending to, and are there any particular ways you prefer things done?" For the next hour, Nathan showed her around the house, explaining the layout and various tasks. The tour revealed a man of simple but orderly habits, who clearly spent more time outside than in. The house was functional rather than decorative, though Lily noticed small touches, a bookshelf filled with well-read volumes. a handcrafted rocking chair by the fireplace that hinted at a more contemplative nature than his taciturn manner suggested. "I'll be out most days with the horses or cattle," he concluded as they returned to the kitchen. "Jim or one of the boys can fetch anything you need from town. I don't expect you to work yourself to exhaustion. Your time is your own after the necessary chores are done." "I understand," Lily said, already mentally cataloging what needed attention. The house was tidy but could use a woman's touch. Curtains needed washing, floors needed a proper scrubbing, and the pantry could be better organized. "One more thing," Nathan said, heading toward the door. "There's a small garden plot behind the house. It's been neglected since Mrs. Hawkins left to care for her ailing mother in Denver. If you've a mind to, you're welcome to make use of it." With that, he was gone, striding toward the corral where several hands were already at work. Lily watched him go, still trying to reconcile the man who had traded his most valuable possessions to rescue her from Blackwell with the reserved rancher who could barely meet her eyes over breakfast. She turned back to the kitchen, rolling up her sleeves. Whatever Nathan Owens' reasons, she was determined to earn her keep, and perhaps, in the process, discover more about the man who had given up so much for a woman he'd never even met. The days settled into a rhythm as summer stretched across the Wyoming territory. Lily threw herself into the work of bringing the Double Circle Ranch house back to proper order. She scrubbed floors until her knuckles were raw, washed linens until they gleamed in the sun, and organized the pantry with military precision. The physical labor helped quiet the lingering hurt of her brother's betrayal and the uncertainty of her future. Nathan remained an enigma. He was unfailingly polite but maintained a careful distance, taking most meals with his men and spending dawn to dusk with his horses. On the rare occasions when they did cross paths in the house, their conversations were brief and practical. Yet Lily often caught him watching her from a distance when he thought she wouldn't notice, not with lecherous intent, but with a puzzled expression, as if trying to solve a complicated equation. The only time his reserve seemed to crack was when Jim brought news from town about Emmett Porter. "Seems your investment paid off, boss," Jim reported one evening as they sat on the porch. Lily was nearby, hanging laundry and trying not to eavesdrop. "Porter's telling everyone who'll listen about his water rights. Already got 2 neighbors offering to sharecrop with him come spring." Nathan's expression darkened. "And I suppose he's conveniently forgotten how he came by those rights." Jim glanced uncomfortably toward Lily. "Well, he spun quite a tale. Claims he made a shrewd business deal, trading something of little value for a fortune." The clothespin in Lily's hand snapped in two. Both men turned at the sound, catching the flush of humiliation that colored her cheeks. "Miss Porter," Nathan began. "Excuse me," she said tightly, abandoning the laundry and fleeing to the house. She was furiously kneading bread dough in the kitchen when Nathan found her minutes later, pounding the innocent flour with the force of her anger. "Your brother is a fool," he said without preamble. Lily's hand stilled. "He's also the only family I have left. Family doesn't sell family." She looked up then, meeting his eyes directly. "No, they don't. But I've had time to think about it, Mr. Owens. Emmett changed after our parents died. The drought broke something in him." "That's no excuse." "No," she agreed softly. "It's not. But understanding is not the same as excusing." She resumed kneading, though with less violence. "In any case, it seems you made the worse end of the bargain. Your prized stallion, 2 mares, seed corn, and water rights, all for a housekeeper you could have hired for a fraction of the cost." Nathan leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "I don't regret it." Something in his tone made Lily look up again, catching a glimpse of emotion in those blue eyes before he mastered it. "Nevertheless," she said, I intend to work off the debt, however long it takes." "There is no debt, Miss Porter." "Lily," she corrected suddenly. "If I'm to stay here, I'd prefer you call me Lily. Miss Porter feels too formal for someone who washes your linens and cooks your meals." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Lily, then, and I suppose you should call me Nathan." It was a small shift, but somehow it altered the air between them. Lily nodded, returning to her bread with a lighter touch. "Was there something you needed, Nathan?" He straightened, suddenly awkward again. "I'll be taking some horses to the auction in Cheyenne next week. I thought. That is, would you like anything from the city? Fabric, perhaps, or books?" The thoughtfulness of the offer touched her. "I wouldn't want to put you to any trouble." "It's no trouble." Lily considered for a moment. "If you happen to pass a bookshop, I've always wanted to read Jane Eyre." "My mother had a copy once, but it was lost in a move." Nathan nodded. "Jane Eyre, I'll look for it." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Lily, what your brother says, it doesn't matter, we know the truth." With that, he was gone, leaving Lily to wonder at the warmth that had spread through her chest at his simple words. "We know the truth." Not "I know," but "we know," as if they were already a unit, bound by a shared understanding. She shaped the bread into loaves, her movements gentler now. Perhaps understanding was beginning to grow between them, tenuous as a spring seedling but with the promise of something stronger. The next week passed in a flurry of activity as Nathan and two of his hands prepared to take 6 horses to the Cheyenne auction. Lily packed provisions for their journey and secretly tucked a small package of cookies into Nathan's saddlebag, a small gesture of appreciation for his kindness. The house felt strangely empty with Nathan gone. Lily had grown accustomed to knowing he was nearby, even if they rarely spoke at length. She filled her days with the usual chores, but also ventured out to the neglected garden, clearing weeds and turning soil in preparation for late summer planting. On the 3rd afternoon, as she was battling a particularly stubborn root, a shadow fell across her work. "Miss Lily." It was Jim Hawkins, his weathered face creased with concern. "We've got trouble. Riders coming." Lily straightened, brushing dirt from her hands. "What kind of trouble?" "3 men, including your brother." Jim's voice was grim. "And they don't look friendly." Lily's heart sank. She'd known Emmett wouldn't simply disappear from her life, but she'd hoped for more time before having to face him again. "What does he want?" she asked, though she feared she already knew. "Best you stay inside," Jim said, offering her his arm. "Me and the boys will handle this." But Lily shook her head, squaring her shoulders. "No, I need to face him myself." Jim looked as if he wanted to argue but simply nodded, escorting her to the front porch where 2 ranch hands were already waiting, rifles casually but visibly present. They took positions on either side as the 3 riders approached. Emmett Porter led the small party, flanked by a man Lily recognized as Silas Blackwell, the trader who had originally intended to purchase her, and a 3rd man she didn't know. "Well, well," Emmett called as they reined in. "If it ain't my dear sister playing lady of the manor." "What do you want, Emmett?" Lily kept her voice steady, refusing to show fear. "Just checking on my investment," Emmett replied with a nasty grin. "Making sure Owens is getting fair value for his trade." Blackwell spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Speaking of trades, Porter, you still owe me. You promised me a woman for my stallion, then sold her elsewhere." "You'll get what's coming to you," Emmett dismissed him before turning back to Lily. "Where's Owens? We've got business." "Mr. Owens is away on business," Jim answered. "And you're trespassing on private property." Emmett's face darkened. "My sister is my property. I have rights." "You gave up any rights when you sold her," Jim interrupted, his hand moving to rest on his holstered pistol. "Sold her." "That what she told you?" Emmett laughed. "I gave her permission to work here. Temporary arrangement. Now I've come to fetch her home." Lily stepped forward, anger finally overtaking fear. You traded me for a horse, Emmett. You have no claim on me anymore. A woman can't make contracts, the third man spoke up. He wore a shabby suit and had the look of a failed lawyer. Any agreement was with her brother, and he's here to nullify it. Actually, came a new voice, deep and commanding. A woman can't be part of a trade to begin with because people aren't property. Nathan Owens rode into the yard, dusty from the trail but with fire in his eyes. He dismounted smoothly, handing the reins to one of his men before stalking toward the visitors. Owens, Emmett acknowledged, some of his bravado fading. We were just discussing our arrangement. There is no arrangement, Nathan replied coldly. Miss Porter is employed here of her own free will. She can leave any time she chooses, but that choice is hers alone. Blackwell urged his horse forward. Porter promised me. Porter had nothing legal to promise, Nathan cut him off. And if you value your health, Blackwell, you'll ride away now and never return. There was something in Nathan's tone, a deadly calm that brooked no argument that made even Lily shiver. Blackwell must have felt it too, for he backed his horse away. This ain't over, Owens, Emmett threatened. I've got rights. You have exactly 10 seconds to get off my property, Nathan replied, his hand resting on his holstered revolver. After that, my men have orders to consider you hostile intruders. The standoff lasted another heartbeat before Emmett's nerve broke. Come on, he muttered to his companions. We'll settle this another way. As they rode away, Nathan turned to Lily, his expression softening with concern. Are you all right? She nodded, though her hands were trembling. I'm fine, but you're back early. Got a better price than expected for the horses, he said, though something in his eyes suggested there was more to it. Jim, post extra guards tonight. I don't trust Porter to simply ride away. Yes, boss, Jim replied, already moving to organize the men. Nathan guided Lily gently toward the house, his hand a reassuring pressure at the small of her back. Come inside. You look like you could use some tea. In the kitchen, as Lily mechanically prepared tea, Nathan placed a parcel on the table. I found your book. The simple gesture, the fact that amid everything he had remembered her small request, broke the dam of Lily's composure. Tears welled in her eyes as she stared at the package. I don't understand any of this, she whispered. Why Emmett would come back now, why he would bring Blackwell. Money, Nathan said grimly. The water rights I gave him have made the Porter land valuable. My guess is he made some deal with Blackwell involving you, and now he needs to deliver. Lily's hands shook as she poured the tea. I can't go back to him, Nathan. I can't. You won't, he promised, and there was steel in his voice. I won't let him take you anywhere against your will. Their eyes met across the kitchen, and something shifted between them, something deeper than employer and employee, more complex than rescuer and rescued. For the first time, Lily allowed herself to acknowledge the warmth that bloomed in her chest whenever Nathan was near, the way his rare smiles made her heart flutter. Why did you really come back early? She asked softly. Nathan's gaze dropped to his tea. Had a feeling, can't explain it. Just knew I needed to get back. Thank you, Lily said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. For everything. His fingers curled around hers, rough with calluses but infinitely gentle. I should have been here sooner. In that moment, as their hands remained connected across the wooden table, Lily realized that whatever happened next, her heart was no longer entirely her own. Somehow, without her noticing, Nathan Owens had claimed a piece of it. The threat of Emmett's return hung over the ranch like a storm cloud in the following days. Nathan doubled the night watch and insisted that Lily never venture far from the house alone. Though she chafed slightly at the restrictions, the memory of her brother's cold eyes was enough to make her comply. Nathan himself, seemed changed since the confrontation. The careful distance he'd maintained dissolved as he found reasons to stay closer to the house, mending a fence within sight of the garden where Lily worked, taking meals at the kitchen table rather than with the men, even sitting on the porch with her in the evenings as she read from her new copy of Jane Eyre. "Would you read aloud?" he asked one evening, surprising her. They sat side by side in rocking chairs as the summer sunset painted the Wyoming sky in impossible colors. Lily smiled, opening to where she'd left off. "I am no bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will," she read, the words resonating with her own situation in a way that caught at her throat. Nathan listened intently, his eyes often straying from the distant horizon to study her face as she read. When darkness finally forced her to close the book, they sat in companionable silence, the gentle creak of the rocking chairs and the chorus of night insects creating a peaceful melody. "My mother used to read to us," Nathan said unexpectedly. "Every night, no matter how tired she was from work." It was the first time he'd voluntarily spoken of his family since revealing what had happened to them. Lily held her breath, afraid that saying anything might cause him to retreat back into silence. "She believed books could take you anywhere," he continued, his voice soft with memory. "Even when our reality was difficult, books offered escape. She sounds like a wise woman," Lily ventured. "She was strong, too, never saw her cry even at the end." His hands gripped the arms of the rocking chair. "I was too young, too weak to stop my father from selling them. By the time I found work and saved enough to try to buy them back, they'd been moved on, sold again." "That's why you intervened for me," Lily said, understanding dawning. "You were making up for not being able to save them." Nathan's eyes, silvered by moonlight, met hers. "At first, maybe. But now." The unfinished sentence hung between them, filled with possibilities that neither was quite ready to name. A shout from one of the hands broke the moment. "Riders coming. Looks like trouble." Nathan was on his feet instantly, guiding Lily inside. "Stay here," he ordered, reaching for the rifle mounted above the door. "But please, Lily." His hand caught hers, squeezing briefly. "I need to know you're safe." She nodded reluctantly, watching from the window as Nathan strode to join his men, who were already forming a defensive line. In the moonlight, she could make out at least 8 riders approaching, far more than Emmett had brought before. Through the glass, their voices were muffled, but the tension was clear. Nathan stood his ground at the center of his men, his posture unyielding as he faced the intruders. Lily recognized Emmett and Blackwell among them, along with several rough-looking men she'd never seen. The standoff stretched for long minutes. Then, suddenly, the crack of a gunshot shattered the night. Lily gasped as Nathan staggered backward, clutching his side. His men immediately returned fire and the yard erupted into chaos. Without thinking, Lily rushed outside, heedless of the danger. She reached Nathan just as he sank to one knee, blood darkening his shirt. "Inside," he grunted, trying to push her away. "Not safe." "I'm not leaving you," she insisted, helping him to his feet as Jim and the others provided covering fire. Together, they stumbled back toward the house as bullets splintered wood around them. Once inside, Lily barred the door and helped Nathan to the sofa, where she could examine his wound. "It's not deep," she said with relief, cutting away his shirt with kitchen shears. "The bullet grazed your side." "Lucky," Nathan managed through gritted teeth as she cleaned the wound with whiskey. "Emmett's gone mad, bringing men to shoot up my ranch." "It's not about you," Lily said grimly, wrapping bandages around his torso. "It's about the water rights. He wants them back and he thinks using me is the way to get them." The gunfire outside had subsided into an eerie quiet. A shout came from beyond the door, Emmett's voice. "Owens." Send my sister out and we'll leave peacefully. Otherwise, we burn you out. Nathan tried to rise but grimaced in pain. Like hell, he muttered. Lily laid a hand on his shoulder. Let me talk to him. Absolutely not. Nathan's eyes flashed. He'll grab you the moment you step outside. Then what do we do? Your men are outnumbered and you're wounded. Nathan's face hardened with resolve. We hold out till morning. Sheriff Jenkins is due to ride through on his way back from Laramie. If we can last till then. A crash from the kitchen interrupted him, someone breaking in through the back door. Nathan pushed to his feet, shoving his revolver into Lily's hands. Upstairs, he ordered. Lock yourself in your room. Use this if you have to. Before she could protest, heavy footsteps approached the parlor. Nathan positioned himself between Lily and the doorway just as Blackwell appeared, his own gun trained on them. Well, ain't this cozy, he drawled. Porter said I could have the girl as payment for my trouble. Seems fair, considering what I'm owed. Over my dead body, Nathan growled. That can be arranged, Blackwell replied, cocking his pistol. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. As Blackwell's finger tightened on the trigger, Lily raised the revolver Nathan had given her and fired. Her hands were steady, her aim true, just as her father had taught her years ago when they'd hunted to supplement their table. Blackwell crumpled with a look of surprise, his own shot going wide and splintering the wooden mantelpiece. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of distant shouting as the ranch hands outside realized something had happened within the house. Then came pounding at the front door. "Boss, you all right in there?" Jim's voice called. "We're alive," Nathan shouted back, never taking his eyes off Lily, who stood frozen, the gun still raised. "Blackwell's down." The door burst open as Jim and two others rushed in, rifles ready. They quickly secured Blackwell, who was wounded but alive, clutching his shoulder where Lily's bullet had struck. "Porter and the others are pulling back," Jim reported. "Seems they lost their nerve when they heard the shot inside." Nathan nodded, then gently took the revolver from Lily's numb fingers. "Are you all right?" The question broke through her shock. "I shot him," she whispered. "I actually shot a man." "You saved my life," Nathan corrected, drawing her into his arms despite his own wound. "You saved both our lives." Lily buried her face against his chest, inhaling the scent of him, horses and leather and gunpowder, as the reality of what had just occurred washed over her. She had nearly lost him. The thought was unbearable. "I couldn't let him hurt you," she murmured against his shirt. "I couldn't." Nathan's arms tightened around her. "Nor I you." His voice was rough with emotion. "Lily, when I thought he might take you." She pulled back slightly to look up at him, surprised to find his eyes bright with unshed tears. The careful walls he'd maintained for so long had crumbled completely, revealing everything he'd kept hidden: concern, admiration, and something deeper that made her heart race. "Nathan," she began, but was interrupted by Jim clearing his throat. "Sheriff's posse is coming," the foreman announced, tactfully averting his eyes from their embrace. "Must have heard the shooting and ridden ahead." The moment broke as reality reasserted itself. There would be statements to give, injuries to tend, explanations to make. But as Nathan reluctantly released her, his hand found hers, fingers intertwining in a silent promise that their conversation wasn't over merely postponed. Sheriff Jenkins was as efficient as he was imposing, a bear of a man with a no-nonsense approach to law enforcement. He took statements from everyone involved, had his deputies round up Emmett and his remaining men, and arranged for the town doctor to properly treat both Nathan's and Blackwell's wounds. "Porter's going to jail for a spell," the sheriff informed them as dawn broke over the ranch. "Attempted murder's a serious charge. The others will likely face lesser charges, depending on their involvement." "And Blackwell?" Nathan asked, now properly bandaged and sitting at the kitchen table as Lily prepared coffee for the lawman. He'll stand trial once he's well enough to travel. Trespassing, assault with a deadly weapon, the list is long. Jenkins accepted a cup from Lily with a nod of thanks. Miss Porter, your actions were clearly self-defense. You've nothing to worry about legally. Lily nodded, though the memory of pulling the trigger still made her stomach clench. And my brother, what will happen to him? The sheriff's expression softened slightly. That depends partly on you, miss. If you press charges for his attempt to, well, to sell you, essentially, that would add to his sentence considerably. Nathan reached for her hand under the table, a silent gesture of support. You don't have to decide now, he told her. Lily squeezed his fingers gratefully. The thought of sending her only blood relative to prison was painful, but so was the memory of Emmett's cold calculation as he'd bartered her away. I need time to think about it, she said finally. The sheriff nodded understanding. Take all the time you need, Miss Porter. Porter and his men won't be going anywhere for a while. After the lawmen departed with their prisoners, an exhausted quiet settled over the ranch. The hands dispersed to their duties, and Jim tactfully suggested he could manage things if the boss wanted to rest up a bit. Left alone in the kitchen, Nathan and Lily found themselves at a crossroads. The night's events had stripped away pretenses, leaving raw emotion and unspoken possibilities between them. You should rest, Lily said, gathering the empty coffee cups. The doctor said, Lily. Nathan's voice stopped her nervous movement. Look at me. She turned, meeting his gaze across the sunlit kitchen. He had risen to his feet despite his injury, standing tall and resolute. When I saw Blackwell pointing that gun at you, he said quietly, I realized something. Something I've been trying not to admit to myself for weeks now. Lily's heart thundered in her chest. What's that? That you've become more important to me than anything, more than this ranch, more than everything I traded to bring you here. He took a step toward her, wincing slightly at the movement. I told myself I was just honoring a promise to my mother, but the truth is, from the moment I saw you standing in that yard with your head held high despite everything, something in me recognized something in you. Lily set the cups down with trembling hands. I don't understand. Neither do I, not fully, Nathan admitted with a rueful smile. I just know that the thought of losing you is unbearable, and I'm tired of pretending that what I feel for you is simply concern or duty. What do you feel? Lily whispered, hardly daring to hope. Nathan closed the distance between them, his hands coming up to frame her face with infinite tenderness. I think I'm falling in love with you, Lily Porter, and it terrifies me because I have no right to ask anything of you after what you've been through. Tears welled in Lily's eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming relief. You have every right, she said, her voice steady despite her tears. You saved me, Nathan, not just from Emmett or Blackwell, but from a life without choices. You gave me freedom when you could have taken advantage. You treated me with respect when others saw only property. Her hands came up to rest against his chest, feeling the strong heartbeat beneath her palm. And somewhere along the way, between your quiet strength and unexpected kindness, I fell in love with you too. The confession hung in the air between them for a breathless moment. Then Nathan's lips found hers in a kiss that began gently, almost reverently, before deepening with a hunger that spoke of long-denied desire. When they finally parted, both breathless, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I don't want you to stay because you feel obligated or because you have nowhere else to go. Lily smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. I'm staying because I want to, Nathan Owens. Because somehow, despite everything, this place has become home. You have become home. It won't be easy, he warned. Your brother will have to find his own path, Lily said firmly, as I've found mine. Nathan kissed her again, briefly but with feeling. "In that case, Miss Porter, would you consider making this arrangement permanent, not as my housekeeper but as my wife?" Joy bubbled up inside her, bright and effervescent. "Are you proposing to me in your kitchen, Mr. Owens, while bleeding through your bandages?" He glanced down at the spot of red seeping through the white cloth and grimaced. "Not exactly how I planned it. I had thought perhaps a proper courtship first, with dinners in town and rides at sunset. We've never done things conventionally," Lily pointed out, guiding him back to a chair. "Why start now?" She began preparing fresh bandages, her movements sure and efficient. "Besides, I think we've had quite enough excitement for one courtship." Nathan caught her hand as she worked, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Is that a yes, then?" Lily's smile was radiant. "Yes, Nathan Owens, 1,000 times yes." The Double Circle Ranch flourished over the next year, as did the deepening bond between Nathan and Lily. They were married that autumn in a small ceremony in Opal's newly built church, with Jim Hawkins standing as Nathan's best man and Mary Green, the barkeeper's wife Lily had nursed through fever, as her matron of honor. The water rights that Nathan had traded to Emmett Porter eventually reverted to the Double Circle when Emmett, released from jail after serving 6 months, sold his land and headed west, unable to face the community that had learned of his betrayal. Lily had ultimately decided not to press additional charges, a mercy her brother scarcely deserved but one she granted for the sake of her own peace of mind. As for Blackwell, he received 5 years in the territorial prison, a sentence that ensured he would trouble them no more. With the danger past and their future secure, Nathan and Lily transformed the Double Circle into a true home. The garden Lily had reclaimed now flourished with vegetables and flowers. The house, once merely functional, became warm and inviting. Nathan expanded the horse breeding operation, his reputation for quality stock spreading throughout the territory. But the greatest joy came the following summer, when their son James was born, named for the loyal foreman who had stood by them through their darkest hour. As Nathan held his newborn son, with Lily smiling tiredly but radiantly from the bed, he marveled at how completely his life had changed in the span of a year. "He has your eyes," Lily observed as the baby blinked up at his father. "And your courage, I'd wager," Nathan replied, carefully placing the infant back in her arms. "God help us when he starts walking." Lily laughed, the sound like music after the difficulties of labor. "I was thinking, perhaps when he's older and has siblings to play with, we might take in other children who need homes. There are too many orphans in this territory with nowhere to go." Nathan's heart swelled with love for this woman who, despite everything she had endured, continued to think of others. "I think that's a fine idea, Mrs. Owens." On the wall of the nursery hung a framed deed, the water rights document that Nathan had traded for Lily, recovered now but preserved as a reminder of their beginning. Beside it was a small pencil sketch Nathan had commissioned of Thunder, the stallion he had given up, standing proud with his mares. Some would call the trade foolish, valuable property exchanged for a woman Nathan had never met. But as he looked at his wife cradling their son, Nathan knew it had been the best bargain of his life. He had traded possessions and gained a family, given up property and found a home. As twilight settled over the Wyoming plains, casting long shadows across the prosperous ranch, Nathan sat beside Lily on the porch swing, their son sleeping peacefully between them. In the distance, a new herd of horses, descendants of those Nathan had traded, grazed contentedly. "Any regrets?" Lily asked softly, following his gaze to the horses. Nathan smiled, taking her hand in his. "Not a single one. Some things are worth trading everything for." And as the stars emerged in the vast Wyoming sky, Nathan Owens knew with absolute certainty that he had found his true fortune, not in land or horses or water rights, but in the love of the woman beside him, a love worth far more than everything he had once owned. 10 years passed, turning the Double Circle Ranch into one of the most prosperous spreads in the Wyoming territory. The single child in Nathan and Lily's arms had grown to 3 James, now 9 and showing his father's gift with horses. Elizabeth, a serious 7-year-old with her mother's quick mind, and Thomas, a rambunctious 4-year-old who kept them all on their toes. True to their word, they had also opened their home to children who needed shelter. Currently, 2 orphaned siblings from a neighboring ranch that had fallen on hard times were living with them until permanent arrangements could be made. The Double Circle had become known throughout the territory not just for its fine horses, but for the generosity of its owners. On a crisp autumn afternoon, as golden light bathed the valley, Nathan stood on the porch watching his eldest son working with a young colt in the corral. Pride swelled in his chest at the boy's patient, gentle manner so like Lily's approach to everything she did. "He's a natural," Lily said, joining him at the railing. Though the years had added a few strands of silver to her honey-brown hair and fine lines around her eyes, to Nathan she was more beautiful than ever. The shy, frightened young woman he had rescued had blossomed into a confident, respected figure in the community, known for her work with the church's charity efforts and her skill as a midwife. "Gets it from his mother," Nathan replied, slipping an arm around her waist. "That same quiet strength that tames the wildest creatures, including stubborn ranchers." Lily laughed, leaning into his embrace. "Speaking of stubborn, have you reconsidered Sheriff Jenkins's offer?" The aging sheriff had approached Nathan about running for the position in the upcoming election. Jenkins was retiring, and he believed Nathan's reputation for fairness and level-headedness made him the ideal candidate. "Still thinking on it," Nathan admitted. "Being sheriff would mean less time at the ranch, less time with you and the children." "Jim and the boys can handle things here," Lily pointed out, "and the children are proud of the work you do. Just yesterday, James was telling the new school teacher that his pa once faced down 8 outlaws single-handed." "That's a considerable exaggeration," Nathan chuckled. "And speaking of exaggerations, have you heard the latest version of our story making the rounds? The tale of how Nathan had traded everything to rescue Lily from her brother had become something of a legend in Opal and the surrounding areas, growing more elaborate with each retelling. The latest iteration apparently involved Nathan fighting a duel at dawn for Lily's honor. "People need their myths," Lily said with a smile. "Though the truth is remarkable enough, I think." Nathan turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. Even after a decade of marriage, the simple touch still sent warmth coursing through him. "The truth is that trading everything I owned for you was the best decision I ever made," he said softly. "Though, in retrospect, I got the far better end of the deal." A shout from the road interrupted their moment. A rider was approaching at a gallop, raising dust along the well-maintained drive. As he drew closer, Nathan recognized one of the young men who worked at the telegraph office in town. "Mr. Owens," the rider called, reining in his lathered horse. "Urgent telegram for you, sir." Nathan took the folded paper, tipping the messenger before breaking the seal. As he read, his expression grew grave. "What is it?" Lily asked, concern evident in her voice. Nathan handed her the telegram, watching as she read the brief message. "Emmett Porter returning to Opal stop claims intent to make amends. Stop arrives Friday. Train stop Sheriff Jenkins." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she folded the paper. "After all these years, why now?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted, drawing her close again. But whatever his reasons, you're not facing him alone this time. Though Emmett Porter had never again attempted to harm them after serving his jail sentence, neither had he sought reconciliation. The last they had heard, he had settled in California, working on the railroads. His sudden return stirred memories Nathan would have preferred remained buried. "Perhaps he truly wants to make amends," Lily said softly, though uncertainty tinged her voice. Nathan studied her face, marveling at her capacity for forgiveness despite everything her brother had done. It was one of the countless reasons he loved her so deeply. "Perhaps," he allowed. "Or perhaps he's in trouble again and looking for help. Either way, we'll face it together as we've faced everything else." Lily nodded, her resolution strengthening. "Together." From the corral, James called for his father to see the colt's progress. Life continued its steady rhythm around them, the ranch operations proceeding regardless of unexpected telegrams or ghosts from the past. That evening, after the children were settled and the house had grown quiet, Nathan found Lily in their bedroom, sitting at her dressing table, brushing her hair with slow, thoughtful strokes. He paused in the doorway, taking a moment to appreciate the simple intimacy of the scene one he never tired of witnessing. "You're worried," he said, not a question but an observation born of years of reading her expressions. Lily set down the brush, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Not worried exactly, just unsettled. Emmett was the last person who had any power over me, seeing him again." Nathan crossed to stand behind her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. "He has no power over you anymore, Lily. You're not the woman he sold for a horse. You're Lily Owens, mother of 3 remarkable children, respected throughout the territory, beloved by her husband and feared by any fool who dares cross her." This drew a smile from her, small but genuine. "Feared." "Blackwell still has a scar on his shoulder that says it's unwise to threaten what you love," Nathan reminded her, dropping a kiss on the top of her head. Lily turned on the stool to face him directly. "Do you ever regret it? All you gave up for someone you didn't even know?" It was a question she hadn't asked in years, not since the early days of their marriage when she had sometimes still marveled at the sacrifice he had made. "Not for 1 second," Nathan replied without hesitation, kneeling before her to bring their eyes level. "The horses, the land, the water rights, they were just things, Lily. Valuable, yes, but replaceable. What I gained was priceless." He took her hands in his touch reverent even after years of marriage. "Besides, look at what we've built together. The ranch is more successful than I ever could have made it alone. Our children are healthy and strong. And every morning, I wake up beside the most remarkable woman I've ever known." Tears glistened in Lily's eyes, but they were the gentle tears of deep emotion rather than sadness. "I love you, Nathan Owens, more than I have words to express." "Then show me," he murmured, rising to draw her to her feet and into his arms. Their kiss was both familiar and new, the comfortable affection of long married partners, mingled with the enduring passion that had only deepened with time and shared experiences. As Nathan's hands threaded through her unbound hair and Lily's arms wound around his neck, the concerns about Emmett's impending visit receded, overshadowed by the certainty of their connection. Whatever the coming days might bring, they would face it as they had faced everything else since that fateful morning when Nathan had ridden up to a small, failing farm and offered everything he owned for a woman he didn't know together, bound by a love that had been worth trading the world for. Friday dawned clear and cool, a perfect Wyoming autumn day that belied the tension humming through the Double Circle Ranch. Nathan had sent the children to stay with Jim and his wife in their cabin on the property, not out of fear, but a desire to keep their reunion with their long-absent uncle controlled and calm. Lily stood before the mirror in their bedroom, smoothing her best dress, a deep blue that Nathan had always said brought out the gold flecks in her eyes. Her hands trembled slightly as she pinned her hair, and she took a deep breath to steady herself. 10 years. 10 years since she had last seen her brother, pale and defeated in a jailhouse. As she informed him, she wouldn't be pressing additional charges but couldn't forgive what he'd done. 10 years of building a new life, of finding strength she hadn't known she possessed. "You look beautiful," Nathan said from the doorway. He was dressed in his good suit, the one usually reserved for church and special occasions in town. "I don't know why I'm so nervous," Lily admitted. "He can't hurt me anymore." Nathan crossed to her, adjusting her collar with gentle fingers. "It's natural. He's your brother, your blood. No matter what he did, there's a connection there." The clock in the hallway struck 9. The train would be arriving in Opal soon. "Are you ready?" Nathan asked, offering his arm. Lily nodded, taking strength from his solid presence. "As I'll ever be." They rode into town together, the familiar route passing in contemplative silence. Opal had grown considerably in the decade since Lily had first arrived, the dusty frontier settlement transforming into a proper town with a schoolhouse, a new church, several businesses along the main street, and even a small hotel for travelers on the expanding rail line. The train station was bustling when they arrived. Nathan helped Lily down from their wagon, then stood beside her as the locomotive approached, belching steam and smoke as it ground to a halt with a screech of metal on metal. Passengers began disembarking, drummers with sample cases, a family with excited children, a young couple clearly newlyweds. And then, stepping carefully down onto the platform, came Emmett Porter. Lily almost didn't recognize him. The angry young man who had sold her had aged beyond his years. Though only in his late 30s, Emmett's hair was streaked with gray, his face deeply lined, his once strong frame diminished. He carried a single carpet bag and moved with the careful gait of someone nursing old injuries. His eyes found hers across the platform, and for a moment he simply stared, as if equally shocked by the changes in her. Then he approached, stopping a respectful distance away. "Lily," he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. "You look well." "Emmett," she acknowledged, grateful for Nathan's steady presence beside her. "This is my husband, Nathan Owens, though I believe you've met." Emmett nodded to Nathan, a gesture that held neither aggression nor submission, simply acknowledgement. "Mr. Owens." "Porter," Nathan replied with similar neutrality. "You're welcome to ride back to the ranch with us if you'd like to clean up after your journey." It was a civil offer, but not an effusive one. Nathan had promised Lily he would be cordial for her sake, but forgiveness was another matter entirely. "That's generous of you," Emmett said, seeming genuinely surprised. "I was planning to take a room at the hotel." "Nonsense," Lily found herself saying, a remnant of the hospitality their mother had instilled in both of them. "You'll stay with us. We have plenty of room." Nathan's hand tightened briefly on hers, not in disagreement, but in silent support of her decision. "The wagon's this way," he said, leading them from the platform. The ride back to the ranch was awkward, filled with strained small talk about the changes in Opal and the mild weather they'd been enjoying. Emmett volunteered little about his own life until Lily directly asked. "California was good for a while," he said, gazing at the passing landscape. "Worked the railroads, then tried my hand at mining. Had some luck, lost it all in a bad investment. Drifted around the last few years." He paused. "Got the consumption last winter. Doctors say I'm improving, but—" The unspoken explanation for his appearance hung in the air. Consumption tuberculosis was often a death sentence, though some recovered if they caught it early and had proper care. "I'm sorry to hear that," Lily said, and meant it despite everything. Are you getting treatment? Emmett shrugged. Best I can afford. The air out here is supposed to be good for it. Better than the city, anyway. The conversation lapsed into silence again until the double circle came into view. Emmett straightened slightly, taking in the prosperous ranch with its well-maintained buildings and healthy livestock. You've done well for yourself, Owens, he remarked, a complexity of emotions in his voice. We've done well, Nathan corrected, his emphasis subtle but clear. Lily and I built this together. As they pulled into the yard, the front door of the main house opened and Jim Hawkins stepped out. The foreman had insisted on being present during Emmett's visit, his protective instincts toward Lily and the children undiminished after years of service. Jim, this is my brother, Emmett Porter, Lily introduced them as they descended from the wagon. Emmett, Jim Hawkins, our foreman and dear friend. The two men sized each other up, Jim's stance clearly communicating that he knew exactly who Emmett was and what he had done. Emmett seemed to shrink slightly under the scrutiny. Mr. Hawkins, he acknowledged with a nod. Mr. Porter, Jim replied stiffly. Boss, I've had the east guest room prepared as requested. Thank you, Jim. Nathan clapped the man on the shoulder, a gesture of appreciation for his loyalty. Would you let Mrs. Hawkins know we'll have one more for dinner? As Jim departed on his errand, Nathan showed Emmett to the guest room, leaving Lily alone in the parlor with her thoughts. She moved to the mantelpiece, where family photographs chronicled their life together their wedding day. Nathan holding James as a newborn, all three children on horseback, the most recent addition showing the 5 of them together last Christmas. She was studying this last image when Emmett entered the room, having washed away the dust of travel. He paused in the doorway watching her. Your children? He asked, nodding toward the photograph. Yes, Lily replied, a mother's pride warming her voice despite the tension. James is 9, Elizabeth is 7, and Thomas is 4. Emmett approached slowly, examining the image. They look like you, especially the girl. They all have something of Nathan in them too, Lily said. James has his way with horses, Elizabeth his stubbornness. A ghost of a smile touched Emmett's lips. Stubbornness runs on both sides of her family tree, I'd say. It was as close to their old camaraderie as they had come, and Lily felt something loosen in her chest, not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. Why are you really here, Emmett? She asked quietly. He sighed, sinking into a nearby chair as if the question had drained the last of his energy. Partly what I said, the doctors, partly. He looked around the comfortable room. I've been thinking a lot about what I did, to you. To our parents' memory. I've had a lot of time to think these past years. And, Lily prompted when he fell silent, and I wanted to see you, to tell you I was sorry, though I know that doesn't begin to cover it. His hands, once strong enough to work a plow from sunup to sundown, now trembled slightly in his lap. I don't expect forgiveness, Lily. I just needed you to know that I understand now what I did, how wrong it was. Nathan appeared in the doorway, his expression guarded as he assessed the scene before him. Everything all right? Yes, Lily assured him, her eyes still on her brother's diminished form. Emmett was just explaining why he came back. To make what amends I can, Emmett added, looking up at Nathan. To both of you. I know it's not much, but I brought this. He reached into his coat and withdrew a folded document, holding it out to Nathan. It's the deed to the water rights. I never sold them, even when things were at their worst. Always knew they should come back to you someday. Nathan took the paper, surprise evident in his face as he unfolded and examined it. These are legitimate, he said after a moment. But why keep them all these years if you weren't using them? Emmett's gaze dropped to his hands. Maybe some part of me always knew I'd need to make things right someday. Or maybe I just couldn't bear to part with the last thing connecting me to Lily. The admission hung in the air, raw and honest. Lily felt tears prick at her eyes, not for the return of the valuable water rights, but for the glimpse of the brother she had once known and loved, visible now beneath the bitterness and mistakes. "Stay for dinner," she said impulsively. "Meet your niece and nephews." Emmett looked up, hope and wariness warring in his expression. "Are you sure? After everything?" Nathan moved to stand beside Lily, his hand finding its customary place at the small of her back, supportive without being possessive. "The children should know their uncle," he said after a moment. "Though we'll need to explain things in a way they can understand." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an opening, a possibility. And as Lily looked between the two men, the brother who had sold her and the husband who had traded everything to save her, she felt the first fragile bridge beginning to form across a chasm she had thought would remain forever unbridgeable. Later that evening, as the children peppered their newly discovered uncle with questions about California and trains and his travels, Lily stood on the porch, watching the sun set over the land she and Nathan had nurtured together. The rich golden light bathed the fields and buildings of the double circle, transforming the everyday scene into something almost magical. Nathan joined her, handing her a cup of coffee and wrapping his free arm around her waist. "Penny for your thoughts, Mrs. Owens." "I was just thinking about circles," Lily said, leaning into his embrace. "How life seems to bring us around again to where we started, but with new understanding." Nathan followed her gaze to where their land stretched toward the horizon. "Are you all right with him being here, truly?" "I think so," Lily said after considering the question. "He's not the same man who betrayed me, just as I'm not the same woman who was betrayed. We've both traveled our own path since then." "His consumption looks serious," Nathan observed quietly. "The doctor in me wonders if he's come home to die." Lily had considered this possibility as well. Despite everything, the thought of Emmett facing his final days alone had pierced her heart. "If that's the case, then I'm glad he's here, where family can care for him." Nathan pressed a kiss to her temple. "Your capacity for compassion continues to amaze me, Lily Owens. I learned it from a man who once traded everything he owned to save a woman he'd never met," she replied, turning in his arms to face him. The years had added silver to Nathan's temples and lines around his eyes, but he was still the most handsome man Lily had ever known, all the more so because she had witnessed his integrity, his gentleness with their children, his unwavering support through every challenge they had faced together. "Best trade I ever made," he murmured, echoing thoughts from long ago as he bent to kiss her. As the sun slipped below the horizon, painting the sky in watercolor hues of pink and gold, Lily Owens reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her here. From a frightened young woman being sold by her desperate brother to the confident mistress of the double circle, wife to a man who had sacrificed everything to give her the freedom to choose her own path. Life had come full circle indeed. And though the journey had been marked by pain and loss, standing in the arms of the man she loved, watching their children flourish, Lily knew with bone-deep certainty that every step, even the darkest ones, had led to exactly where she was meant to be. The final chapter of their story was still being written, but the pages already filled were testament to a truth Lily had learned through living it. Some things truly are worth trading everything for, and the love that had bloomed between a desperate woman and the cowboy who had risked it all to save her was chief among them.